Let's get to the 458. This thing is so cool. It's a very, very special car. I'll tell you why. This car is the last of the Holy Trinity, the trifecta that started with the 360, went to the F430, and finished off with the 458. Now, the 458 is the car that took Ferrari into the future. It was a huge leap forward from the F430. Now, the Ferrari 360 was the first all-aluminum Ferrari. It was the first Ferrari without having to pull out the engine to do the timing belt, which was a huge leap forward. It was a very tight project with Alcoa, who was the aluminum provider for Ferrari since 1994. And Alcoa used to make all the aluminum in the Netherlands and in Germany, and then they would ship the aluminum chassis, not even put together and assembled, to Ferrari in Italy, along with a couple of their staff that would assemble the chassis for Ferrari in Italy. In 2006, Alcoa, the company that provides Ferrari their aluminum, which is an American company, started a giant plant in Modena, Italy, and now works very tightly with Ferrari to develop their aluminum chassis. So the 360, and then it jumped to the F430, which shares some 360 panels even, and then the 458. So the 458 is the end of those three cars. It's also the beginning of the next phase of Ferrari. This is the car that put Ferrari in the future. This is the car that really was a big game changer in exotics and in Ferraris. Lots of firsts on this car. Let's take a deep dive. Now, back in 2010, when this car was released, it was kind of a shocker. Ferrari departed from a lot of things, and it was not a entry-level Ferrari by any means. It was very expensive, started at about $250,000 and went up from there, and you could rack them up and put a lot of options. This car really changed a lot. Now, it shares a lot of things and a lot of characteristics of let's say the F430, but it has made some major improvements on those things. And this is why this car is now going up in price. The 488 Ferrari was the car that replaced the 458. It was the same chassis, same body. They went from a 4.5 liter V8, naturally aspirated, to a 3.9 liter V8 twin turbo, with forced induction, obviously. That gave the car about 100 more horsepower, but over 200 more pound-feet of torque. It was a big upgrade, but this is the car you want to own, not the 488. The 488 is a great car, and it was the replacement for this, but there's a reason this car is going up in value while the 488 keeps dipping little by little as it gets older, which is normal for cars. Now, the generation right before is going up, while the car that replaced it is trickling slightly down. Why is that happening? Why is this car specifically picking up so much value? When this vehicle was released, it came with a 4.5 liter V8 naturally aspirated engine, 9,000 RPM, and it's a hell of a screaming engine. It's got insane throttle response, and it was one of the very first cars that shipped with pre-fill as a way of braking. So it would pre-fill the brakes when you lifted off the throttle. Let me explain what that means. So normally, when you lift off the throttle, there's a slight delay before you move your foot over to the brake pedal and you get on those brakes. When you're driving this thing hard, what it will do is, as soon as you lift off the throttle, it will preload the brake pads onto your rotors. It won't brake, but it will preload and get them really close, kissing those rotors. And then when you apply the brake pedal, they're already right there and they're squeezing. So there's no delay in applying the brakes. That was something very new at the time, and this is one of the cars that did that. It was one of the first Ferraris to ship with a timing chain and not a timing belt. What that means is no more belt service. This car does not need a world of maintenance. If it's not a heavily driven car, you want to give it a brake flush every year and you want to get your oil changes. And that's practically it. There is no major maintenance on this car. Also, something very important about the 458 is it was the first Ferrari with a dual clutch transmission in it. What that did was get rid of the really shitty F1 single disc box that they were using. And their dual clutch is night and day difference between where the 430 was compared to where the 458 is. So that was a major first as well, and it was a very good dual clutch by GetRag and did the car a lot of justice. So dual clutch transmission first in the car, 4.5 liter naturally aspirated V8, 9,000 RPM, monster, it's a screamer. So with 563 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque, this thing is very fast. It's very quick. It's got about a 3-second 0 to 60. When it came out, it was blistering fast. Right now, in today's supercar and exotic car climate, it's not insanely fast, but people are realizing it's not about top speeds. It's not just about 0 to 60s. I mean, what do you want? Like 2.5? Like, what does that change? You know, like, what does that really change as far as the driving experience goes and what you're really enjoying in a car? So our viewers know that I really love Pininfarina, and it's been part of Ferrari's heritage since the very beginning, basically. And this is one of the last cars to carry a Pininfarina badge on it. Here's the crazy thing. It was so good that they basically made some minor changes and released it as the 488. They needed to change certain things, but it was a very similar design. A lot of people will ask, is that a 458 or a 488? Why I'm emphasizing this is, when Ferrari released the 458, again designed by Pininfarina, it carried the Pininfarina badges and it was considered a Pininfarina designed car. When they jumped to the 488 and made some minor changes, it no longer carried the Pininfarina badges on it. So they didn't consider it a Pininfarina design anymore. And neither does the F8. That doesn't carry Pininfarina badges either. So this was one of the last Ferraris designed by Pininfarina and carries the signature on it. And as the market matures on these things, I think little things like that is going to mean something in the resale world. This one specifically spec'd really nice. It's got the carbon shields on the side instead of the yellow shields. I love the yellow shields, but the carbon really looks good on this, and it's got a lot of carbon all around on the car. The brakes on this thing, massive carbon ceramics. It really is a very good brake system. This is one of the very few cars, and I genuinely mean one of the very few cars where, in my opinion, the Spider looks as good, and I would buy the Spider over the Coupe. With the top up, this car looks nothing like a convertible. It's got such beautiful character lines, possibly even nicer than the Coupes. The fact that you don't have to make a sacrifice to drop your top is really huge. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit of an improvement in design as well. Very timeless design. I think this car has aged very well. I think this is going to be a collector's car in the future. I freaking love the back end of this car. I love the 458 all around. I think it is perfect. The back end, which has a lot going on, is just so well done. It's just so beautiful. This car was a departure from the dual tail lights that Ferrari was known for. So if we look at this character line, this line actually wraps around the tail light. So this tail light is coming out of the body. It's almost like there's this like tube that's like through the car, and just this part of that tube is showing, you know what I mean? So really cool design. Everything just kind of wraps around that tail light, because Ferrari tail lights are iconic to the car. You don't see Ferraris with like insane stuff happening on the back end. This is one of the signature things of Ferrari, and this was one of the first ones that had a single tail light on each side, bigger and so well integrated into the rest of the design. Dude, the exhaust on this thing, this was something that was very new for its time as well. 3 tailpipes coming out of the middle of the bumper. As good of a car as it is mechanically, it's that good design-wise as well. On the Spiders, because the roll bar has to sit above the head of the driver and the passenger, you have these two massive bolstered pieces over here that are just gorgeous to look at. No matter what color this car is in, with the top down, this back angle looks so super cool. Everything is just perfectly placed, especially for a convertible. It's just timeless. It's not about putting a lot back there and just holes and there's gaps and there's this. Everything is just seamless. You need air to come out, here's space for air to come out. You wanna let some heat out of the engine bay, there's vents, 3 on each side over here. It's almost like, it looks like some kind of sea creature, an animal with gills on it. One of the things that really sucks about being a car guy that's in the car business and you got cars you're taking on trade-ins, you got cars you're sourcing around the country for your clients, is you fall in love with really good things and you develop a pretty good taste in what you like and what tickles your pickle. One of the toughest parts about being a car guy in the car business is I want to keep everything, man. Like, I don't want to let go of anything. And I feel like I'm at a stage where I really want to jump back into a 458 before they really go up in price. I think it's one of the most perfect Ferraris, and I believe this car is going to be a collector's car. So if you've ever had your eye on a 458 or a mid-range Ferrari, this is a great car to consider. And like I said earlier, it's not the fastest exotic on the market, but you will have a great time driving this car. It might be a hair slower than the most modern one that's out there, but it's all about having the fun and experiencing it. Unless you want to pay about 100 grand over window and pick yourself up an F8, which is discontinued, so whoever has one is selling it for premium money. So if you have one, I think you should hang on to it. Actually, I take that back. I think you should sell it to me. So give me a call. Hit us up at Studio Motors. If you really do want to dump your 458, we're the right company to get rid of it for you. Either I pick it up for myself or I definitely have a lineup of clients that I can put into those cars. As a matter of fact, I never plug in Studio Motors and what we do. We do dope shit, man. We could get you anything if it exists in the United States. We've pulled cars out of different countries and legalized them for the United States. If you got to sell anything, we'll get you top dollar money for your car. And we are very passionate about what we do. We are not suits and ties and number guys trying to sell you a car. We're a genuine car guys trying to make sure you pay a fair number for your car, you get the most bang for your buck, and you end up in something you're genuinely going to enjoy for the time that you have it, which is super important to me. So check us out, studiomotors.com. Look, it's a physical key. You stick it in a hole. This is how cars used to work. And I love how Ferrari implemented their system in the 458. So you have a physical key, you put it in the keyhole, and you turn, and then you hold the engine start on the steering wheel. And it comes right to life. Check this out. Soon as the car goes over 4,000 RPM, it just really screams. Shift lights! All right, cool. So I'm gonna turn the ignition off so we can talk about the interior of this car. It's carbon, black leather, perforated leather on the outside, carbon bottom. It's a flat bottom steering wheel with a carbon top and shift lights integrated right into the steering wheel. This isn't meant to look smooth and fluid and hide the buttons. This is meant to, you are in an exotic supercar. Do it, baby. Drive it like you stole it. That's what this says. Michael Schumacher, the legend, the guy that brought championships back to Ferrari's Formula One teams, the guy that didn't leave the team and he fought for it where the cars weren't as good as the other teams, but he brought home championship after championship for Ferrari after struggling for a couple of years and never giving up. Hardworking guy. I love Schumi. Now, before his 2013 skiing accident, Schumacher was involved with the Ferrari design team in developing the interior for the Ferrari 458. The fact that they brought their Formula One driver to give it that formula, that racing feel, is Ferrari's testament to pushing the envelope and bringing as much from motorsport into road cars as possible. Keep in mind, Enzo Ferrari didn't give a shit about selling cars to the public. The only reason he agreed to sell cars to the public is so he could fund his racing. That's all Enzo wanted to do, was race cars. Everything you need right on the steering wheel. Everything else is just for convenience, okay? Whatever is not part of the core functionality of driving a vehicle is placed on the sides over here. Everything that you need to operate the vehicle is just right here, all at your fingertips, and it's very well integrated into the car. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, the Ferrari 458. One of my favorite. We really hope you enjoyed watching the video, and we have new stuff coming weekly, so like, subscribe, share, do all the things, press all the buttons. We love you guys. Thank you. Dave, Studio Motors, we're out.